Jesus went to such lengths to understand our flesh. I'm going to show you how far he went. If you read Matthew 27, it's Matthew's account of Jesus going to the cross, the crucifixion. What you need to understand about crucifixion, crucifixion was an instrument of death and torture that the Romans used, the Roman government used for certain types of crimes. Okay, they didn't just crucify everybody. They crucified people who did something that they wanted to make sure no one else did. So especially those who posed a threat to Rome. So what would be the greatest threat to the Roman government would be a coup or a revolutionary, all right? So whenever there was someone who tried to be a revolutionary, who tried to overthrow them, they could have just taken them out back and put them to death, but they didn't do that. They crucified them, they created a massive scene of humiliation. This is why, by the way, when Jesus went to the cross, he went to the cross nude. He was naked. They stripped him. He was totally naked on the cross. Why? Part of the humiliation. Because if there's anybody in the crowd who's thinking about maybe striking up a revolution, okay, who's maybe feeling, tough, who's maybe feeling motivated, and they go, that's a deterrent. I don't think I want to do that. So what they did was they went through great lengths to humiliate. This is why Jesus, he says he's king of the Jews. Well, they put a crown of thorns on him. Like, here's your crown, man. They actually took a very expensive robe. It was a crimson robe, not cheap. And they put this crimson expensive robe on Jesus while he's bleeding out, he's feeble. Why? Because they want to have a mockery. They want it to be almost a sadistic irony that you go, this is where you'll end up. It says at one point in Matthew 27, they put a stick in his hand and said, here's your scepter. And in verse 31, it says, when they got tired of mocking him, in other words, they mocked him so bad, they got sick of it. And it said when they got tired of mocking him, they snatched the scepter out of his hand and beat him over the head with it. So now you have Jesus who is fully humiliated, fully exhausted, mind, body, soul is at its absolute limit. We see his body giving out because he's carrying his cross and he can't do it anymore. If you ever come to that place where your body's like, it ain't going, it's done. And so he can't do it, so they give his cross to Simon of Cyrene. Then watch this. In verse 34 of Matthew 27, it says at this point, after all of that had happened, the soldiers gave Jesus wine mixed with bitter gall. Okay, why bitter gall? Because they didn't want it to taste good. Why wine? Because wine was a numbing agent. It's a numbing agent. You drink some of it, it numbs your mind and your body. So they're going, this man's body's giving out. He's at his breaking point. He's at his boundary. And so at least we'll give him some wine to numb the pain a little bit, to get him up on the cross so we can keep humiliating him. We want to keep him alive. And look what it says within the scripture. When they offer him this wine, it says, but when he tasted it, he refused to drink it. Jesus spits it out. Why? Jesus spits out the wine because he did not want his senses numbed. Jesus wanted to go to the cross with a sound mind and with his body, his full senses. He wanted to understand the extent of suffering. Mind, body, and soul on every level, to go to the human capacity to suffer so that there was no box unchecked, no category unchecked. Jesus understood suffering. Listen, I know there are some of you have been through things, you've hit your breaking point. You are at a place of suffering that you're going, I don't know, I can't go anymore. I can't go physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally. I'm done. I can't go. Jesus walked through of that with no numbing. No numbing. Why? To fully understand flesh. That's the length he went through to get flesh.